Okay, I just want to quickly talk about this because I've been thinking about it a little bit. But there's racial social conditioning the same way that there's gender social conditioning. Like, everyone learns right from the get, at least here in America, that like fairer skin automatically is deserving of more respect. Everyone's taught that from the get. Like, if your skin is darker, you are lesser than. Like, literally, I swear to God. I swear to God. Like, how, because I'm just thinking about how frustrated I felt in like second grade for not being as like as Ruth was, this like blonde white girl, right? And like just feeling like insecure and frustrated, but not because like of anything I did, literally because of what I looked like. And not in a like, oh, I'm pretty, she's not way, in a like in a literally in a skin color way, like literally and then like those are white kids playing sports with money, and I'm like a black kid in like an immigrant apartment, and I'm just lesser than, and I tried to accept that. That's just the way of the world. Like, I learned that was the way of the world in like first grade, like from the get, and I think everyone did too, you know, because that's how everyone treated you. They treated you like you were an anomaly, like being a person of color, like not even an anomaly, but just like an other, like you were an other, point blank period, from the get, from like age like 5. It's not like something that came about later on. That is the way, like the social structure is. Like, there is a racial conditioning, just the same as girls wear dresses and boys wear pants, girls like pink, boys wear blue. It's like, and I was thinking, yeah, I started getting that memo in kindergarten, like all these little comments and aggressions and stuff. But I was just thinking about like the difference between like gender and racial conditioning, or socialization, I should maybe say. And obviously, society's it's a lot more acceptable to gender things than it is to racialize things. It's a lot easier to gender dolls and the color pink, and that was just like sitting here like that. So of course it was bound. But anyway, a lot easier to gender those kinds of things than it is to say that jazz is for black people, soul is for black people, pop is for white people, rock is for white people. You know what I mean? You can't just say that the same way you can say blue is for boys, trucks are for boys, pink is for girls, dresses are for girls, right? Like, you can't be as open about like your racialization than your gender. I was trying to like find equivalent things. It's kind of hard to do because we don't do it. It's not as like open to pick, this is for black people, this is for white people, this is for this race, this is for that race. But it is still a thing. There is still things that are like assigned. There are still like facets of society that are assigned to races, that you just kind of follow. You just kind of, when you learn to be a member of society, when you learn to conform, you learn to conform to those like racialized systems, right? And so I was thinking about the difference between the two, and I think one of the major ones is that I think the inferiority superiority dynamic between men and women came after the gendered identities were established. Like, after women were established to be feminine, and like what we view as feminine, and like mothers and caregivers or whatever, and we established men to be strong and manly and all that stuff, like, tough and powerful, whatever. After we kind of established that, I feel like at some point those were like neutral, but then after we kind of established that, and at some point down the line, it became, this is superior, this deserves the power, it says men is superior, it deserves the power in society, it deserves the money, the property, all of it, and this is superior, and these women are subordinate to that. but with people of color. I guess I'm talking more Western society here, but with people of color, I feel like there was no like, this is black, this is white. Literally, as soon as like the color of your skin is established, okay, as soon as it's established, darker than a paper bag, lighter than a paper bag, it's superior, inferior. Like, that was just off the get. Like, that was just like, go 1, 2, 3, racism. like race was established so there could be racism, you know what I mean? Whereas sex, I feel like, was established for some sort of like just organizational convenience, efficiency. Like, okay, men, they have these trades, they do these things, okay, so they're gonna be hunters, they're gonna be protectors, they're gonna be whatever. And then they're women, they have these trades, they're gonna be nurturing, they're gonna be right. Like, there was a level of just like, of, I guess, logic that just came with like assigning those gender roles. And then it evolved into like, oh, okay, so, you know, we look pretty so we can attract men, and then like we're gonna be tough so we can attract, I don't know, whatever. But then at some point it was just like, and we have the power of society because we're the superior sex. And then that's just the way it was ever since. But I feel like with like the racial socialization, there was never like any logic to it. It was like, it was literally divided, it was literally assigned so there could be a superior race, you know what I mean? Like it was literally invented for the sake of like white superiority, which is like bad. which is extremely like bad. I don't even know like what other words. Like, you know what I mean? Because it's just like, because then not only is it not spoken, because obviously you can't be right out with that thing, there's no logic to it, so you can't be direct about it, because then if people are going to be like, what, how does that make sense? You're going to have no explanation because it's illogical. It's irrational. So you're not going to have any clear distinctions of black people do this, black people do that, the same way girls do this and girls do that. No, and boys do that. No, we can't have that. No, we're just going to have like these unspoken social rules. We're gonna have these unspoken kind of expectations. Don't bring those kinds around. You know what they get up to. Or like, you can aim higher. She's pretty for a... Y'all know the things that you hear. They're sinful, they're this, they're that, right? They are only good for this. You're just very othered, basically. You're very othered, and usually in a negative light, of course. But in modern times, of course, it can't only be negative, otherwise that's discrimination, and we have like we've clocked people on that shit now, so it can't be so overt. But then, you know, you get things like tokenism and like a diversity plot, and like sometimes, like, I feel like it's so strange because like the first season of Sex Education was so good with its representation, but then the last season was so like tokenized. It was like, you know, you don't feel like when something like, and I don't know, I can't speak for disabled people, but I feel like the way they were represented in that last season of Sex Education wasn't representation. It was just inclusion for the sake of it. You know what I mean? It wasn't like actually like, I'm going to treat these people like they are equal to the other members of these white able-bodied members of the cast, of the main cast. Yeah, it was just like there. I mean, their voice, like there is exposure to like their issues, which is always important, of course, but I think more than that is humanizing them, like actually just recognizing that they are characters. They have character. Okay, they have like families and goals, and there are people. I feel like that's number one. And then naturally, people have struggles. People have setbacks and things that are frustrating. And then, you know, they go through those struggles and setbacks considerably, and they start to notice a pattern. They're like, I wonder if other people like me also kind of see this pattern. And then, you know, they get talking, they're just like, yeah. You know what would have been cooler? Like, if Fredisha, I don't remember her name, because, like, she had no real character besides being, like, polyamorous and deaf. But if the deaf girl and the wheelchair guy, okay, you know what, I still remember his name because he was kind of interesting. He was, like, a real character, but anyway, if they actually, like, had a conversation about, like, anything, maybe they had, like, something completely unrelated to their disability in common, and then it, like, maybe eventually got to their, like, shared struggle, because that's, like, a natural thing people connect on. I feel like if there was something like that, like, that would have been a very humanizing conversation in a natural way to kind of, like, bring their struggles up, and then together they, like, kind of, like, you know, confront the school and it becomes a thing. That could have worked better, but honestly, that conversation probably would have been more impactful than that, like, you know, I'm sick of there not being a fixed elevator. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I just feel like it's more important to I guess make them relatable. I don't know, but not even relatable as in, like, I personally need to, like, be like, oh, me, but just, like, real, like, make them real. Don't make them like a ploy, you know? So that was a tangent. We love tangenting here. But yeah, that was all just to talk about representation and inclusion and stuff like that, and not othering people, and modern, right? I was talking about, like, modern othering, because, like, in the past, obviously, it was just straight up prejudice. But, like, now it's like, you're not like me, but I have to seem like I'm inclusive. So tokenism, faked representation, like, poise, right? So yeah, and it's just like, if you weren't socialized to see people of color or people of any minority as an other, there would be no need to be colorblind or to be woke about it, be anti, you know what I mean? You could just, you know what I mean? I mean, I think what's more important in terms of, like, breaking down these social systems is just learning to not be afraid of people's minorityness. I feel like you kind of have to treat it like it's any other trauma, you know what I mean? Like which is definitely a fine line, though, because obviously, like, being a minority doesn't automatically mean your life is traumatic. But, like, treat it like any other struggle, you know what I mean? Like, you wouldn't, like, avoid your friend because they're having trouble with their mom right now. Like, no, you'd be like, oh, sucks, why? Like, you know what I mean? You would, like, and you would just kind of, like, treat their issues with, like, an according amount of, I don't know, maybe you need to be really tactful because it's super sensitive, or maybe you can just, like, casually talk about it because it's just, like, something bothering them, or, you know, like, you can just treat it like it's any, like, treat them like they're any other person, you know what I mean? Treat everyone like we're all just, like, equal beings. I feel like that's truly just the level we need to get to. But yeah, it's definitely easier said than done, simpler said than is. So I get that being tricky, a bit of a layered goal. But yeah, I just really wanted to, like, talk about that a little bit, the difference between racial and gendered socialization, because, like, you're definitely 100%, everyone is socialized to be, I think I'm talking more colorist, because I was in fact talking, like, this arose in me. Okay, and I do this a lot. I don't love it. I feel like I tend to, like, if I feel like someone isn't seeing something the way I see it, then that must mean there's something about them that's blocked, which isn't like a good thing. But there is definitely some merit to what I'm saying. It's just maybe like what ignited it in me wasn't the greatest representation of it, but it did ignite for me, thinking about how Ariana tends to like think of men not really. It's been a bit tricky. Maybe I gotta plug it in. I'll check in a second. As like when she thinks of men as oppressive, she really just thinks of men. She doesn't like think much about like the white man. You know what I mean? And I realize it's because when you're next to a white man, it's not the first thing you have to care about. You know what I mean? It's not like the first, like, she's fair skinned, so it's not an elephant, but she's a woman, which is an elephant. It's its own elephant. And so it's like, I feel like she just doesn't have as much of that intersection. So I guess not as much race, because it's like literally like an I'm definitely thinking more color. Yeah, definitely thinking more color, just because it's like the clearest indicator of race. You know what I mean? I think of race. Yeah, I think because even like Black Americans who were born and raised here, they're not immigrants. They're not from like a different ethnicity other than American. It's the fact that they're Black. It's the fact that their skin, and I guess, yeah, maybe their eugenics aren't like white and Anglo automatic. So I guess it's both. It's racism and colorism, but I guess I'm leaning more colorism right now. It's that fact that makes them just not as free in the world, not as like able to just like, their access is limited in terms of what they like, where they can go, who they can talk to, what they can do, what they can attract. Like, it's, you know, so and yeah, it's just interesting to compare it to gender, where it's a lot more, it's interesting actually, because it was so universally accepted. Like, obviously Black people were never okay with being thought of as inferior. Someone just labeled them that way, and then they, like, of course they'd be like, no, fuck you. But like, I feel like with women, it was so much more gradual. Like, the roles were established, and then the power balance was established, and it was just kind of society for like hundreds of years. It was like, women are subordinate to men. That's just how it is. I got it. Let me go do my thing. And so it's like, it's hard to just erase like hundreds of years of like social structure. And it's we talk about it now, like women empowerment, but like you still need to fall in line to get a man. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I see it a lot in dating. Like, in dating, it is not equal. It's like, you can't like throw it out. You can't be sexually liberated or whatever. You can't throw it out, otherwise a man's gonna think you're a whore. So you have to be super like nurturing or like motherly, or just like, you have to be like a Madonna. You can't be a whore. So the man can attract you, because the man can only see you in one of three ways. They can see you as wifey, they can see you as situationship, they can see you as a whore, and you have to comply to that, okay? And then women, fucking men have to either be fucking like tough, or they have to be like kind, because a woman needs you to be all manly, but they also need you to be like a good person, because it's modern times. They can't just like hit a woman or something. So, you know what I mean? They need you to be like this perfect Prince Charming, perfect element of like tough and dominant and whatever, but also like kind and supportive and whatnot. And it's just like, but like, also, if you're ugly, it's fine, and if there's any other flaw, it's fine, because we just take you as you are, because that's just what women are supposed to do. They're just supposed to be accepting of all men, and also do everything for everyone always, and also be happy all the time. And it's just like the roles are still there, you know what I mean? Like, you You know what I mean? Like, yeah, women empowerment, yeah, women are equal, but they're not. You know what I mean? And maybe society just doesn't work if there's not like some people who just, you're just born into an expectation and you just follow it from birth to death. And society just can't work if we're all just people, you know. But that's my spiel. You let me know what you think about it. About it. 20 minutes. I've been hours straight talking. What do I even do with my life? That I have so much to say.